I'm Brittany Turner. I'm founder and CEO of Ariel, and I started my companies because I want to help people. And my original vision was I thought I had to be a missionary to be able to really help people in desperate need. And so that was my plan. And I started my company so that I could fund that and I didn't have to ask anybody else for money. And that's a pretty good plan. And I hope there's so many G-Force members on here, which is great. That's what a lot of us are doing and or working towards. So I have dedicated my life to being a force for good in the world. And going on all these mission trips, I got really frustrated because I would feed kids or build something, but I wasn't really solving the root issue. And the root issue was really steeped in poverty and desperation. And so I've created a brand called Ariel, and every single one of my companies, I've got 5 now and a nonprofit, are working towards how do we solve world issues with each company in its own way. And Ariel Recovery Group was born from frustration, just like every single one of my companies. And so I encourage you, when you're frustrated, don't get lost in it, be inspired by it. Put something together, because it's normally an invention or a company that can change everything. Frustration is nothing more than the vision of a higher standard. And so it's up to you to bridge that gap. So what you are seeing is my experience in going in these developing nations and responding to life or death disasters, and really seeing how we could be more efficient. I thought, again, I would have to be a nonprofit or something to be able to make a difference, but my skills in business have really allowed me to create an amazing and effective organization by listening, taking notes, filming, documenting issues, and then really working with other incredible people who have a lot more experience even than me, like Jeremy and Amanda, which you guys will be hearing from today, to build something that has never been seen before in the disaster front. So the way that my long-term vision for solving poverty-related issues and ending human trafficking, the reason this still flows into that, which I always like to explain to people, is that when you can go in after a disaster and serve with a pure heart, leaders of that nation are really open. You can overcome corruption when you go in when people are down. And we don't want to have bad people go in when people are down. We want to be good people coming in to allow nations to be even stronger on the other side of disaster. So we are looking for incredible, motivated volunteers who are dedicated to serving. We're not looking for people who want adventure and want to take a really cool selfie for their Instagram. You will get adventure, but this is not about us. And if your heart isn't in it to truly serve people who are in a really bad situation, then please jump off the call. You guys could stop that. So our mission as Ariel Recovery Group is we are a full spectrum emergency management firm. The mission of Ariel Recovery Group is to save lives through risk mitigation, effective response, and accelerated recovery. Our highly trained experts work alongside government agencies and communities as force multipliers to accomplish this mission. What we're looking for, like I said, are highly motivated people looking to serve. Our core values, and if these don't resonate with you, again, feel free to jump off the call. But if these do, then we would love to work with you. Our core values are that we exist to save lives. Again, that's primary. That came from frustration of seeing NGOs come out here and not do anything that really promotes saving lives. It's more about them, and that's not how we operate. We always find a way, not an excuse. We bring order. This is a really chaotic environment when you're responding to disasters, and we want to bring order. We want to bring peace. We bridge purpose, and that's for our volunteers and the people in need. And that came from really seeing I didn't have to be a billionaire to create a lot of impact. All I had to do was bridge all of the resources of people who really want to help to the great need that has just taken place. And all of us can do that in every part of our life and in other things, not just this, but it's really amazing how many people want to get involved and there's not a clear path for how. And so we're going to be bridging that through our volunteer corps. We are strategic planners. Jeremy, I'll let you actually jump in and explain that one. Jeremy?
Yep.
There.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Getting used to the Zoom thing. Yeah. So doing what with my experience, and for those of you guys who don't know me, I'll just go kind of introduce myself a little bit more. For those of you guys who do know me, hello. But so I am 19 years in the military now. I served the first 11 of my years in the infantry with awesome soldiers such as Tyler, who's on right now. And I've done the last 8 years as a Green Beret in the Army. I've spent about over 4 years of my life in combat zones, various places in the Middle East to the Horn of Africa. I've seen a lot of stuff. I've seen some terrible things. I've seen the best and the worst of humanity. But in the worst of times, I've also seen the best of people come out. And I believe that the best of a lot of those people, they thrive when you plan properly and when you are trained for certain situations. And the Army and the military has invested a lot of money into myself and people like me to be able to function well in environments like that. So when you're talking about strategic planning, as a Green Beret, our biggest bread and butter is that we plan. We plan for everything. We plan for contingencies. We plan for you name it, and we probably have a plan for it before we go and execute any mission. So being strategic about anything you do, whether it be life or whether it be a mission you're trying to accomplish, is very huge, and it's very, very important. So that's definitely something that's why it's in our core values, if that explains it, Brittany.
It is. Thank you. We are culturally sensitive. That's really, really important, especially as we go overseas, as a lot of these disasters happen overseas. You'll receive training to make sure that you understand how to be culturally sensitive, especially for the people who haven't gone overseas before. It's different. It is different, and they are not to abide by our American ways and our Canadian ways and our UK ways, for everybody who's listening in on this. We want to be sensitive. We want to be a blessing, not a jerk. So we are force multipliers, which means we come in with small teams to really empower the local people to be able to rebuild themselves. But when you're down, you do need help. You do need somebody who is trained and mentally stable to come bring in fresh energy, fresh resources. But we want to always be empowering, not here to create handouts. We want to create hand-ups, always. So today's call is about what our volunteers are going to be involved in and trained in to help accelerate recovery. For those of you who have not been part of disaster before, there are 5 phases, and our volunteers are going to be part of each phase and in different ways. So number 1 is you really want to be planning your resiliency. So there's resiliency planning phase, taking in all of the issues that could possibly happen in your mind. This has gotten really strained over the last couple of years as storms are getting more intense. We have seen more Category 5s than any other time in history. And I don't know or care if you believe in global warming. The water is getting warmer, which is causing more intense storms, which costs a lot of life, a lot of destruction. People have not built or prepared to be able to handle this level of storms. And so planning, taking it very seriously is extremely important. First response, this is that, helicoptering in, emergency response that you guys have seen a lot of pictures in, bringing in food, water, supplies, shelter, first aid. And we've got, first response is really recon as well. And then we've got emergency relief, which is really bringing in those supplies to start to stabilize life again. So they're not like robbing grocery stores and hurting each other. Recovery management overseas, really how do you handle those distributions and help life start to feel a little more normal. And then innovative redevelopment is, okay, now we're coming back online. We as an organization want to help come back better, come back stronger, come back with new ideas. And that can really work well with international partnerships as countries come back online. So an overview of what all we do is pre-crisis. We as an organization ensure shelters and emergency supplies are ready for Cat 5 plus hurricanes. This training is specifically for hurricanes right now, as volunteers are going to start getting more trained and more, really more well-rounded. We'll start adding in earthquakes, pandemics, war, poverty, all of those are all crises, and we can respond to them, but baby steps. We want everybody to feel good about this and not overwhelmed. We develop comprehensive location-specific crisis response plans. We train local teams in disaster management best practices, as well as our teams, for the zones that we are going to have contracts in. So we want to be able to respond to areas that we don't have contracts in, but we're looking to actually get contracts with countries so that we are automatically allowed in with our people. One of the most difficult things after a disaster is even having a pass to come in. And that sounds crazy, like, why wouldn't they let help in? But there's a lot of traffickers that come in and swoop up kids. So these countries have to really manage who they let in and how legit they are. And so we don't want to cowboy this. We don't want to sneak in nations. We don't want to get held up or have all this stuff planned and then the airport doesn't let you land. You really want to have that built on the front end. So we've identified different countries that we're working with, getting those passes before a disaster strikes now. That's what we're working on. Either way, we're going to try to respond, but it's going to help if we've got that set up. Build a regional alliance for guaranteed response. We're going to go into that in a little bit. Develop custom life-saving communications online platform and apps. So if you guys want to be involved in that part, we will go into a much deeper part of that. It is very cool. We've never seen it before, and it was invented through, again, frustration, lack of efficiency. How can we really optimize things when it comes to saving lives? It matters. So during a crisis, we execute our disaster response plan, which includes getting our alliance, which is our guaranteed rescue and aid, onto the site. We handle evacuations and emergency relief coordination, aerial and ground recon led by our special forces teams. Saw John's on here, which is great. Good to see you, John. Launch of life-saving communications platform. We actually launched the platform that we've been building before the disaster. We have, and we also will be managing for the government different NGOs, volunteers, and donations and distribution of supplies, which is one of the biggest chokeholds during a disaster. Is there's not really large enough teams trained or set up prior to a disaster. And so what you see on the news is, oh, these didn't get distributed, everything got hoarded. Yeah, well, there wasn't a plan for it. So not every one of them are evil for not distributing it. There just wasn't a plan. So we want to help get the supplies to the people who need it. Crisis recovery. We do international fundraising for projects. We accelerate the reopening of the economy. We have a smart tourism relaunch. So everybody who's volunteering to help out with film will be involved in that. Harnessing new business initiatives. Some people are really passionate on this call on how to bring in new pillars to the economy. And that's something really important to us. We're going to go through all the places that volunteers can be involved, but it's not necessarily like you hauling the wood that just got blown into somebody's house out of their house. Like, that's not what volunteering has to look like. There's so many different pieces of people needed that bringing in new business initiatives can be a huge part of it. I've helped develop 2 schools here in BVI and training centers to help create new local jobs post-disaster, because that's one of the biggest needs, is more local jobs versus it being so tourism driven. And then phase 2, disaster training for self-sufficiency. So we're continuing to train our volunteers as well as locals in what did we learn from this disaster and how can we be more prepared on the next one. So Jeremy is going to go into our volunteer core and how it's broken down and what kind of capabilities we're looking for. This is not limited to this, but a lot of you filled out the application, if not all of you, and you saw the different areas that you can pick from to get involved in. This is kind of how it gets broken down into what we look like together. Jeremy can explain it better than me. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah. So basically, I'm a big advocate of not reinventing the wheel, and the military is very good for structure and organization. So a lot of the ways that we're doing this is we are categorizing how the company will be built. And we separated it into different areas as far as you can see them up there. That's pretty much, if you are familiar with the way the military's organizational structure is put up, you will recognize that. Ministry is added onto that, but that's how it is. So within each one of those, you have various specializations, and you will have someone that will be a representative of Ariel's permanent party team, and then we'll have our volunteer corps. And based on what you have answered on your submissions with your applications, as well as when you think about it and you start looking at these different areas and you kind of realize like, okay, I have a passion for this. I have a company that can help with that. I have this and that. You just let us know about that. And what we want to do is we want to, number one, put you in where the need is. And number two, we want to put you in where your passion is. So I really believe in that. Like if we can get you involved in the best way that you want to be involved, it's just going to help everybody out. So you see the different capabilities within these are definitely not limited to that. I don't really need to go over this slide, but it'll get explained it a little bit more as we move forward from there.
If you are passionate about something that you didn't necessarily mark on your box, let us know. And we will go through kind of how this comes together as you start to see more of what we do. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Yeah. So if you look on this slide here, we are comprised of this isn't just a military operation. We just have some people that bring different value from different areas. Brittany brings an excellent background with missionary work, with volunteerism, with business. There's all sorts of wonderful attributes that she brings. There's a lot of wonderful attributes that I bring, and the military folks that have been working on this. And then you have the local experts, which is key. And we have all these different areas. And what we want to do is we want to get our volunteer corps to fit within these boxes, just so we can maximize everything we have here. So what the point of this slide is just for you guys to kind of see who you're going to be working with. And I can be honest and tell you that this is not a ragtag operation. This is an operation that is inspired, and it's filled with professionals, and it's filled with like-minded individuals who want to serve, who want to use their expertise in their training to train other people. And we want to force multiply. That's what we're trying to do. And that's why we have you on this call now. And that's why we're accepting applications for that. We want everybody to be working equally. We'll see what everybody brings to the table. And then once we do that, we'll divvy that out, and we will help people to the best of our abilities.
Awesome. Great. So during a crisis, first thing we do is activation and coordination. So hurricane's headed its way, let's say BVI. Local volunteers, project leaders, and communities are activated again. Hopefully we will have already been working with the local community to produce training with them, and we've got all the different sections with all the different islands mapped and leaders in each section of that island trained. So we're letting them know, hey, get ready. And we also reach out to all of our volunteers. Hey, looks like there's a bad one headed to BVI. So mentally prepare, get your affairs in order, be ready to deploy into action in some way. Training programs and simulations ramp up for pre-crisis preparation. So before hurricane season, which is now 1 month away, we will start to actually run simulations in the different zones. The Caribbean is the Caribbean, and so there's a lot of similar things that can, be translated from Bahamas to BVI, but it's best if we can know which areas we're geared up to jump into, which is why we're trying to get those contracts on the front end. Again, we will still respond, but it's better if we can train you in the area that we know, because BVI has mountains, Bahamas does not. Hurricanes hit and affect territories in different ways. Special Forces recon teams arrive in the region and begin recon preparations. And we will have secured all equipment and supply caches, preferably before, but in the event we see it hit really quickly, we will start getting all of that together to bring over. Recon and first responders plus emergency relief takes place. So aerial recon, we will map affected areas and drop zones. So people who are really skilled in one, jumping out of planes or whatever it is, Jeremy, that you guys do is great, but we also need drone pilots and people who are really good at technology to be able to take the maps of the affected area and upload them into our platform. Ground recon teams are inserted into severely impacted areas to provide real-time situational awareness and aid. This comes from people wanting to help and throwing money at all these different organizations, but nobody really understanding the need. So we're taking all the recon and putting it into one place to say, this is the real need for water. This is the real need for food. This is the real need for shelter versus millions of dollars going to nothing. First responders, trained teams will be deployed to provide medical aid, perform search and rescue, evacuations, establish communication, and coordinate with local assets. So again, our volunteers will be part of that, but you got to be trained, especially for that stuff, because that's life or death. If you know anybody that would like to be part of this, let us know. We will also launch the communications platform. So we will take that platform that we built out and launch it to where everyone around the world can go to one central place to learn about the disaster and how they can help fund it. So we will be the background. All of us will be the background of actually like making it reality. And then other people will say, oh my gosh, there are 5,000 cots needed. I happen to own a pillow company. Do you need pillows for those cots? Well, yes, we do. So we would have one of our volunteers actually managing getting those pillows to the location for the shelters. So emergency relief, Aerial Recovery Group will design and execute an effective emergency mission plan working alongside the government. So it's really important because they do have disaster management departments that have a plan. Our goal is never to run anybody over, even if we think they're not effective at times. I'm not saying that is the case, but sometimes that happens. People are like, they don't know what they're doing, run them over. It's always to power them up, to help support them. A lot of people are living here. Well, they're always living where they live, and they're affected by it, or their family's affected by it. One of the locations we recently did some missions in, the head of their disaster department lost 5 family members in Dorian, lost 5 immediate family members. You think he can lead when he just experienced that kind of loss? Like, how can you function in your mind? Anybody who's ever lost a child, I can't imagine like trying to process leading this kind of stress at unprecedented levels of storm. So our goal is to be a blessing and to help them, help support, not run over. So our capabilities during emergency relief, this is awesome for our volunteers to be involved in, is setting up and stocking distribution centers. There's actually ways to do it that can be really effective. And we've been learning the best practices across the globe to be able to say, here's how to stretch your materials farther by a rental system and return system versus you needed a chainsaw for a day and now we're out of a chainsaw. Bringing it back. Evacuating civilians, coordinating NGOs, arranging emergency relief, guiding donors to communication platforms. You don't have to even be here. You can just share it on your social media. Here's the place to find, how to get involved in joining the recovery. Setting up the shelters, organizing and distributing the donations, clearing the ports of entry. During the crisis recovery, we help businesses get back online. We launch new initiatives such as solar programs, educational programs, bringing in new industries, helping rebrand the country. A lot of times, especially in the Caribbean, these nations survive on people coming back. And if the world just said Bahamas is completely destroyed, even if it was only 3 islands of the 700, everybody cancels their vacation, the whole country goes bankrupt. So we don't want that to happen. We want to help make sure the country is still being spoken of in a way that's not a lie, so you show up and everything's destroyed, but how people can be involved, what are the new opportunities, what's the public facing story. So if you're good at writing, if you're good at PR, if you're good at communications, you may not have ever thought that you can be involved in disaster relief, but that can bring the economy back online and save lives. One quick story, and something people don't really think about, if all these houses blow away, where are the people living? And people move in with other families. There can be 5 families in a 3-bedroom house. And there's a lot of rape. Rape goes through the roof, especially in children. People are taking their stress out on these kids. It's a horrible, horrible situation. And we can accelerate the recovery and helping that not happen through all the pieces that we're sharing today. And publicizing a successful story is part of that. Just showing, hey, look how fast BVI came back online. Look how fast this happened. This is what worked. This is what didn't work. And then we'll take what did work and we'll take it to Puerto Rico. We'll take what we do right in Puerto Rico to Jamaica. We'll take what we did in all 4 of those to Haiti. And so we're going to get to Haiti, by the way. We will. I believe it's not our first, it's not the first task, but by God, we're going to get there. So this is the kind of training that we're going to go through. Every volunteer is going to go through basic training and specialized training. And Jeremy, I'm going to let you run with that.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll be, myself and a couple individuals will be kind of the primary trainers for this. Myself and Amanda, you'll be seeing a lot of her, especially when you guys start getting involved in the training as well. So we do have a lot of people with a lot of expertise in this. And I spoke earlier about using structure that I know. And one thing you guys are probably familiar with, even if you're not in the military, is a little thing called basic training. So basic training is just an opportunity for everybody to get on a baseline. It gives you courses that let you know what to expect, what you've gotten yourself into, and it gives you some tools on how to get yourself out of certain situations. So that's essentially what we're going to be doing here. Our basic training is going to teach you about hurricanes. It's going to teach you about what happens, what you need to be doing before a hurricane, what you need to be doing during, how you can help people, how you can help yourself if you get injured, how you can help other people if they get injured. When people come up with you with questions, you have some answers for them, because in times of crisis, people are going to be looking for answers. So we want to make sure that our volunteer group, as well as our staff, when we go out there, we are one big team and we are able to provide those answers. We don't ever want to just be looking at each other with blank stares. So this training will help you be completely baselined, and we'll all be on the same level. And then from there, we spoke earlier about the specialized training. That's going to cover you into if you're going to be someone who's going to move out and be operational, doing search and rescue operations, whatever you are qualified and trained in, or if you're going to be out there helping with our logistical transportation, movement of supplies, equipment, personnel. We need all of that for, just so you guys are kind of aware. So I work with a 12-man, we call them an ODA. It's a detachment of 12 Green Berets. And we're out here where I am right now, and there's 12 of us here, but we have upwards of 150 people that support us. And we wouldn't be able to do what we do without that support group. So not all of it is right there on the front line with your face on TV or anything like that, but that's not really what it's about. What it's about is getting the mission accomplished. So if we can get all of this together and have this an awesome, well-oiled machine, and the best way to be good at something is to be trained on it and to be practiced on it and to be perfect. Well, Brittany doesn't like the word perfect, but to be proficient. I will use that word, to be proficient on it. So that's what we are going to offer you with these courses. Some of them will be online. We will also offer some of them to be in person. And then prior to deployment, those will definitely be in person. So we have an awesome curriculum for you guys to go through, and it's going to increase your awareness and your proficiency, and it'll give you some sweet little tools that you can put in your personal toolbox to help you deal with situations that you might encounter in something other than a hurricane or disaster situation.
The basic training covers more than, the reason everybody's going to go through that is if you're questioning, like, why would I need that if my only part that I'm going to be involved in is sharing social media, is because without trauma sensitivities and grief counseling or understanding disaster response 101, you're not even going to know how to put in a caption. You're not going to know how to answer the phone to evacuate somebody getting out of a country if you have no grace of understanding what they're going through. If you don't have any training for sensitivities whatsoever and you don't have a grid for this, you're going to do more damage than you will actually helping people. Even though that's your heart, people can act crazy in these situations because they just went through a lot and they're desperate. So I'm going to introduce Amanda. Amanda, are you there?
I am here.
Amanda Rendon is one of our incredible G-Force members. I'm so grateful to know you, and she's going to be chief of coordinating our volunteers and training. And she's going to give a little background on herself and then talk about why being trained really matters.
All right, I'm Amanda Rendon. I've had about 10 years of disaster preparedness training and experience. Really harsh, unusual environments. I've been in orphanages and war zones, rescuing trafficked victims from ISIS, gave birth to my baby 30 miles from ISIS front lines while doing that. So I've had a lot of experience in really hard, I haven't told you that yet, but, really hard situations, and coordinating teams, working with people that weren't trained well. So I saw the need. So I've spent the last 10 years just trying to identify what were the problems, how can I make this better. I'm a lot like Brittany, frustrated with things. I worked with different NGOs, like, this is terrible. How can we improve that? So I hope to bring that to the team, because my passion is to unlock people's potential so they can go have maximum impact in whatever they're meant to do, whatever brings you alive. So I am really going to be focused on resiliency training and just bringing all my experience to the team. So that is some of my background. And then I'll just go into why being trained matters. Like I said, I've been in a lot of these situations with people who weren't trained, and all kinds of problems came up. You want to be confident, competent, and effective. This kind of training will help you in every aspect of your life. Going to the grocery store, encountering, a bully, whatever it might be, being a better parent, better spouse, because you'll be able to adapt to stress, regulate your emotions. All of that's going to be in the training. The situations can be life or death, very traumatizing. So your stress is going to go through the roof. You have to be able to respond. Decision fatigue can set in. So we have to train you well in harsh environments. If you're going to be boots on the ground, the training needs to be solid. You have to be solid. We all want to be a team that adds value. Lack of training can distract, and without the actual skills needed, you can make the situation worse. We can make the situation worse. If we give a task, I don't know anything. I don't know how to support that. I don't know how to do basic things. You can actually be kind of a dead weight. At one situation, a girl had a panic attack while we were in the middle of this crazy refugee clinic. People are screaming, and then my team member that I was relying on was having a meltdown. So that's the kind of situations that can come up. Without interpersonal skills, you can shut down the unity of the team, the fluidity, your own efficiency. So that's something we have to work on. The situations are very physically demanding. You might not be able to sleep. It might be too hot. It might be uncomfortable. The people around you might be irritated. All the noise might bother you. It's a new food that you don't like. There's tons of things that we don't tell we're in the situation that we have to prepare you for. So we want to get you ready and healthy so that you can continue to be effective and think clearly. The people we're working with some of them have literally, like Brittany said, lost their babies in their arms in the most traumatic ways possible. So you'll be dealing with shock, anger, rage, grief, confusion, all kinds of things. So we need to train you to be effective in that. And then also, if you have any triggers and trauma, your trauma will be triggered. So we want to get you as whole as possible. And this training, we want to elevate you in every aspect of your life. This training, you will be able to go forward and just be more effective in anything you put your hand to. So that is why being trained matters.
Amanda, I've got a little quick comment on that. John and Tyler, you might recognize this term. So we have a very technical term for someone who's untrained and just kind of in the way in the military. We call them poop makers, because all they do is stand around and they eat and they make poop, and that's the only value they bring. So we don't want any poop makers. You can make poop, but at least add some more value too, besides just the poop.
Trying to cut back on poop makers. Amanda, what are our next steps before we roll out the basic training?
Yeah. All right. So there's a lot of things you can do right now and get ready for the long-term goals. All of these are going to make your life better in every aspect. So they're beneficial. Take responsibility for your health. To be an effective volunteer, it starts with ownership of every aspect of your life, because you need to come and have yourself together. So little ways to take responsibility for your health. Start walking, start running, whatever you can do a little bit more and more and more. Because you're going to need to be able to go without sleep, still have energy, have health, have your health, you know, whatever supplements you need to keep going, learn about those. So that's a really big deal to get strong. Start lifting weights. You never know what you'll have to do if you're going to be boots on the ground. And even if not, if you're going to be my team at home, they were doing long hours with me and we were exhausted, but that required health. So no matter what it is, take responsibility for your health. Like get your affairs in order to be able to deploy. We can't have people distracted over here, over there. You have to be able to have your mind in order. So also train yourself on being in uncomfortable, difficult situations. That is actually something you can do right now. I started with trying to new grocery stores. I realized I liked my way. So I was like, I need to get out of this. Little things, taking my kids on purpose and practicing having peace and, you know, getting ready, they have their snacks, whatever it might be, having hard conversations, whatever it was. I forced myself in a lot of uncomfortable situations. Running at the hottest time of the day was a really good way to prepare for me. And then also dealing with your trauma ahead of entering a disaster. A lot of us don't think that we're traumatized, but there's tons of things. The smallest thing comes out on the field. So a place that I really, really like is Elijah House. They have a course called Trauma Triage. Kerwin Ray is also another, he's like Gary Vee. They have great developing your mindset that you have a no excuses mentality, because that's what's going to take. So start developing a no excuses mentality to get ready for this.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Awesome, awesome, awesome. We want you to be stabilized, effective, healthy, and ready to handle anything, regardless of if you're in the field or not. Again, this changed my life. Like I said, I had the heart to be a missionary. I always knew it'd be hardcore, overseas, rough missions, but being able to actually be God's hands and feet on a mission. God doesn't normally lightning bolt people or things into people's hands. And so he's always used as a vessel, and we can be a blessing. You don't have to believe in God to be a great part of this team. I don't care, but this is just what I've seen as people pray and pray and pray for help. We can be that help. And if you can find ways to start automating your business, or find that babysitter that's willing to jump in and have your kids for a week, we want you to be clear-minded. We want you to be able to give. And I've seen people come alive. When you can serve with a pure heart and you're really making a difference, like, it will change you. It will give you purpose like you've never seen before. It is very hard, but it's worth it to sleep in the dirt. It's worth it to deal with the bugs. It's worth it to deal with not having the food or any of the fun, like, little luxuries that we have, because you have so much meaning in that moment. It shifted everything in my whole world to be able to be part of missions like this, either from support and or to be the boots on the ground. All of it is just amazing. And looking in people's eyes and being able to hug them and evacuate them out of just this awful situations, it's amazing, and it will change you. So I'm really excited about everybody on here. I've been wanting to create this core for years, but it's taken having John and Jeremy and Amanda and the other parts of our team who are helping us develop this out to really make you effective. I've only been able to take like ER doctors and really, really, really hyper trained people with me in the past, because like I said, it can be more of a liability. But for us to be able to perform as a unit and come together in every single aspect that we started to cover, we truly can accelerate recovery. So very excited to have you all. And if you need to hop off, you can. But if you've got questions, this is our Q&A time to go through questions. I think I saw something pop up on the chat.
Yeah, I had a quick comment. So I received a message from Britt, and she was talking about how she knows certified skydivers, over 1,000 skydives.
Wow.
Which is awesome. So that's the type of stuff where I was kind of hoping that this would bring out of you guys. So not to pigeonhole you in just what that application gave you, but if you can think of anything outside the box, it's great. Like how we can be value added if we can get work with, that's just a great example. Work with help some people get free fall qualified or something like that. So I appreciate that message.
Awesome. Shannon said, how and when do we bring others in? If you know somebody who wants to actually be trained and on the core team, we recorded this and we're happy to send it to them afterwards. This is just kind of, again, an overview and what it's going to look like. Make sure you all still want to be part of it and what our goals are. And then we're going to be rolling out training and different courses. I mean, it's serious. It's not going to take up 40 hours a week or anything near that, but if you want to grow in your skill sets, you got to take the time to learn to be effective. So we'll be rolling that out over, every week for the next several months and years. And you'll be trained with different certifications and different levels, like disaster management level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can handle different things. And based on your training, you'll be able to go on different missions or help in different ways. So happy to have people continue to sign up and send this over to them. This was kind of a fast put out there meeting. Not everybody could join. So that's great. There is no cost. So great question. There's no cost. This is you're part of our team. Like we're investing in you. If we're building out the training course for a government, that costs them money because it's specific to them. But because you're specifically an aerial recovery group volunteer corps, there is no cost. We're just going to keep investing in you. The only cost is if you are going to be boots on the ground, we'll have a list of things that you need to buy so that you're equipped, backpacks, certain gear, and we'll be rolling that out later. And so just at this point, just start doing the things that Amanda just went through. Don't worry about that yet, but that's a cost that I imagine later.
Brittany and Jeremy, in your experience, this is Kate Webster, sorry.
Okay.
Do you know how long missions will last or how long people should plan to be available if they're needed?
Yeah. Jeremy, did you have an answer for that? I will answer that. So missions can be anything from 5 days to several months, but we try not to keep everybody on the ground for months and months at a time. We'll try to pull you back out, but I would plan on 5 days to 2 weeks on average. Boots on the ground specifically, but the entire recovery process can take months and months and months. So depending on your role, it's not going to be a full-time job for people months and months on end. We'll try to swap people out, but having good process to be able to handle that will be key.
I would definitely say I would plan for more pushing towards about 2 weeks. And the reason for that is logistically, like the whole point of everything is to help the people that are out there. So if we're having to move personnel back and forth, those are taking up valuable poundage on airplanes to get supplies in and out. And we want to have some sort of continuity. So there will be a structure. I did see a comment in here earlier too, like when do we expect these deployments or something? Somebody wrote something like that, but a lot of it is you have to realize that we are doing a preparation and then we're entering hurricane season right now. So it could be 2 weeks from now, or it could be hopefully later than that, 3 months. It could be next year, but that's why we're getting all of our ducks in a row. And yeah, but to answer your question, Kate, I'd say like 2 weeks, but you will have we work around it. If there's something going on, we'll figure that out.
Historically, the hottest water is September and October, and that is 90% of the hurricanes take place during those months. But technically, hurricane season starts June 1st and doesn't end until like December 1st. But it obviously depends on where you are in the world. So our main focus on hurricanes will be Florida and the Caribbean. Like that's what we plan to respond with. We are, if you can think about it, more of like a traveling FEMA. A lot of these nations don't have a FEMA, and they have 4-person disaster management teams that can't handle this. So Gina just commented, Whitney, get us all in shape. Whitney, will you get us all in shape?
Yes, I can do it.
Awesome. If you're part of G-Force, she's giving out health tips every week and different workouts on our page. If not, we will be finding out a training plan fitness plan for the kind of things that you need to be able to handle overseas. Kate.
Okay, so another question. So anyone that wants to be involved, like I've got connections to EMTs, firefighters, and a first responder in Nashville and Lexington, Kentucky. I think they'll be super excited to learn about this. But it's a standard training. Like you have to go through aerial recovery training. Everyone does in order to get the call and say, hey, Rick, we're ready for you in Florida in 3 weeks or whatever. He needs to be like, okay, great. I've already done your training. Tell me when to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only exemption would be maybe if we needed more ER doctors or something like that, because it's just a state of emergency. They're pretty trained in being able to deal with traumatized people. But there's the trauma and how we handle things with grace and how we're there to help people with their language, even talking about how your greatest pain can become your greatest strength, how that can become your purpose and how that works. Like, I want y'all to understand that. When you start looking through the lenses of your life with the filters of saying, no matter what happens to me, I'm going to make it serve me. I'm going to make this become the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Satan's not going to win, or this darkness isn't going to win. Like, I'm not going down with the ship. I will turn it into a way to be able to help more people through how I overcome this. And when you can share that kind of language with people on how to talk to people who've just gone through so much, you're not like, yeah, you'll get through it and it'll be great. Like, or God will give you another child, or whatever horrible, idiotic things that people say. We need people to go through this sensitivity training, as well as just how we operate as an organization. Aerial itself means to keep the big picture in mind. And we are really big into that stronger message and helping people realize that. One of the reasons for this is, when you come in to help, people are really listening to you. You're there to help them, and they're just like, think you have so many answers. And if you don't understand that suicide rates like quadruple after a disaster, sometimes much more than that. In one of the nations that we were responding to, they only had 5 people die from the hurricane, but 500 people killed themselves in the following 3 months. 500 from the stress. But if we can come in with good messaging and good media to start helping people understand, hey, here's where the help is. There's hope. People still care about your situation. You're not alone. Here's how to find resources. Here's who's coming in this week. This just rolled out. This just opened back up. Like, if you can share the hope and that energy versus I lost everything and everyone that I love, why should I keep going? It's a game changer. So we want you to be trained in that language. Any other questions?
I just wanted to comment. It's really important that everybody gets on the same page. I had one volunteer for a really simple thing, go get whiteboards for our team. And they went and lied to the person they were buying and made all these promises to get a cheaper deal. Like, that's not what, we're not going to go lie to people. Said, we're going to go back and fix this. We're here to make an impact and create relationships and stuff. So you never know. It's just really important, I feel like, to get everybody on the same values, because that is what we're permeating into the culture, and that's what we're leaving behind. And then one other thing, this training, it will be able to cross over. Some people, if you want to go do a homeless ministry, you want to make sandwiches, you want to help traffic victims in your area, you will get to go make that impact in what you do. So you might only come serve for 2 weeks, but then it's gonna go with you and help you serve better and more effective in what you're already doing.
Great. Even if you deal with somebody that just got bit by a snake or run over by a car or heart attack at the grocery store, like, it's really good training to have. We're all human beings living in this dangerous world. It's awesome to be effective versus just feel powerless. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I'm not scared to look dumb. Do we need a passport?
Oh, yes. Depends on what you want to respond to. It would definitely limit you being able to be called, but most Caribbean nations are not American owned or Canada owned. So yes, we highly, highly advise if you want to be able to deploy, getting a passport. Makes life a lot easier. They are very picky. They don't care if they're starving and dying. They won't let you in without one. And we 99% of the time have to send your passport ahead of time to be able to get your flight approved to land. Everybody on it has to have those pre-sent in. So even if their airport gets blown away, they normally have some kind of a processing system.
Yeah. There's still manifests with, when we went to the Bahamas, even though we were on a little, I don't know, like 8-seater plane, and the main airport there was in shambles. It had just been underwater, 20 feet of water, like 3 days prior to us landing on it. So, but we still had to fill out a manifest. We still had to show our passports. We didn't show them when we landed because it was in disarray there. But when we came back to the United States, we had to go through customs just like anybody else.
What's the next step?
Jeremy.
Yeah, so the next step is to just, if you guys are still on board with this and want to be doing this, is to get yourself ready, as we saw there, with just make sure you're staying in shape and mentally preparing yourself prior to anything coming on. If you are going to volunteer, and make sure you do have a week to 2 of some time you can take to actually help. So a big problem is you'll get 500 people I'm just making a number up here, but that want to help, and great on them. That's awesome. But then things might come up. They might be in Florida, and that hurricane may have slammed into BVI and then moved on to your own town. So you need to take care of yourself. So we need to get for sure, my affairs are in order. If something happens, I can help out. I don't have vacation until June, but I'm free, in June. So we know that those are the type of people we can lean on, and the type of people we can get. And then we will push out the training to you guys. So once you receive once you get the training, to go through the training would be a great step on it. So that's basically where we are right now.
Awesome. All right. Well, if nobody else has any questions, obviously you can DM us or message us on the @Aerial Recovery group if you have more. And we look forward to working with you all to accelerate the recovery, save lives, and eliminate confusion. Have a wonderful, wonderful week.